Hello, good day, and welcome to today's session entitled Resiliency for Working Parents. This is brought to you by Anthem, which is your employee assistance program. My name is Teresa Francois, and I will be your host for this webinar. A little bit of background. We will be using the chat feature to communicate. So if you have a question or a comment, please feel free to drop it in the chat as we go along. This is being recorded, so if you need to step away or if you have a colleague who is unable to get on the call, they can access the recording at a later time. So when you think of resiliency, it's been an interesting 2 years. It's been a tough 2 years. And when we think of resiliency, we think about bouncing back, the ability to bounce back in the face of adversity, right? That's something we come up with. So what does it mean to be resilient? Again, to handle difficult situations. And we have handled some very, very difficult situations in the last 2 years. The ability to positively adapt and to handle adversity, right? Sometimes we use the word stick-to-itiveness, we use grit, right? When the going gets tough, the tough get going. These are all things that we use when we talk about resilience. And the reason we talk about resilience with parenting is that parenting takes a certain kind of resilience, right? Because there's so much involved in being a parent. So many, and parenting, parents, regardless of how old your kids are, you are always their parents. So from the littlest little to the ones who think they're grown folks, you're still their parent, right? So parenting, right, wasn't a verb until the 70s. Right back in the 50s, depending on where you are in your time frame here, there was only one parenting book, and that was Dr. Spock. He was the expert, right? That was the handbook, the Bible, if you will, of how to be a parent or what to do as a parent. Now there are thousands of parenting books and guidelines and things on YouTube and social media, or you can get advice about parenting from so many places, right? And as I said, parent or parenting became a verb in the 70s, right? Until the 50s, children worked. Those child labor laws hadn't come into play yet. And it was economically advantageous to have these kids who could go out and work. Today, they're economically disadvantageous. They cost us a lot, right? Whatever, schooling, braces, extracurricular activities, college, and on and on and on. And as I said, even when they get to be the grown folks, they still need help. And because we are their parents, we help them out. So parenting has always had these categories, but it's just of late where they've gotten hip terms. Yes, I said hip terms that go with it, right? So the term you hear a lot about is the helicopter parent, right? Back in the day, we would say our parents were strict, where the other kids could go and do what they wanted. Our parents were hovering over us, hence that term helicopter. We didn't use that back in the day, right? But they were strict. They were always checking on us. They didn't let us do anything, right? So that's the helicopter parent, or the parent who micromanages. See, and know this about these 4 categories, sometimes we move between them. Again, depending on the age, the chronological age, the mental age, the emotional age of our child, we may move in between some of them. Sometimes these overlap, right? The tiger parenting, that one's relatively new, right? I know what's best for you. And because I know what's best, I will hover over and micromanage. So you see where helicoptering and tiger parenting can overlap. These can mesh. The authoritative parent, they are the dictator. It's my way or the highway. This is the you're living under my roof, you will do as I say, and I know best, and I will micromanage. So you see how they start to mesh. And then we have the laissez-faire or the permissive parent. Whatever you do is fine. It's a very child-led environment, letting them explore, letting them figure things out. right? So we really want to, again, situationally, we want to take a piece from each of these, again, depending on the child, depending on the situation. Sometimes it might be, you know what, I know what's best here. We're going to do it my way. This is not the time for you to explore or discover. This is dangerous. This can be hurtful. This can be hurtful in the long run, right? So I'm not letting you decide if you want to explore crossing the street. No, you're holding my hand. We're walking together. That's a trite example, but and again, as they grow older, as they start to move away, which they should do, right? Even baby birds get flicked out of the nest, right? They start to move out. They may go away to college. They get married. They're in a relationship. They get married, whatever. So we start to step away a little bit. So we have to, before we start to see um, about our kids, we have to see what kind of adult we are, right? And what are we bringing? What do we have as a manual for parenting, right? We don't have. I mean, it's still around, the Spock book and the thing. We really had the way we were raised, right? So and we can go either way with this. We can go with, I don't want to be anything like my parents, and go the complete opposite direction, or we can go with, I had a pretty good childhood. Yeah, I want to be like my parents. And two, it's not just me, right? My spouse, partner, they're bringing with them their upbringing, their background. What did they, how were they raised? Do they want to act or raise their children the way they were raised, or do they want to go in the complete opposite direction? Right? And so these are expectations. And whether we know it or not, or whether we like to admit it or not, we have expectations of our children. What kind of child or children do you want to raise? And we can say lofty things like we want them to be respectful, we want them to be socially responsible, and those are good traits, right? And those things, they don't just happen. And you know this, we can't go by the do as I say, not as I do. They learn by example, right? They are watching us. So if we want them to be respectful and kind and socially aware, then we have to be respectful and kind and socially aware. I do a lot of trainings on diversity and inclusion. People ask, well, how do we teach kids? I had a group this morning that asked that. How do we teach kids to be inclusive? By example. Who's in your friend group? Who are you speaking unkindly about? Who are you calling other? Who are you excluding? Kids pick up on that. Right? My daughter, she's 21 now, but she would say, about some of the moms in her class, like the moms of the kids in her class. She'd say, Mom, I could tell. She said, you like Miss Lisa, but you wouldn't go have coffee with her. That was her barometer of who I would be close with if I would go out for coffee with them. Not that I was unkind, but I don't see you cozying up to her. So they pick up on those things. They see how we treat people. So what is your expectation then? What kind of adult do you envision them being? And even though we say we want them to explore, to find their own way, we have some kind of vision that we have of them, what kind of adult. And when we're talking about what kind of adult, doesn't mean what career they'll have, although we have those kind of expectations too. And sometimes those expectations are rooted in they're going to join the family business, or you're going to be a firefighter or a police officer because it's in the blood, it's in the family, it's what we all do. So there's an expectation of that. But again, what kind of adult in terms of how they move through the world, how they treat people. Are they kind? Are they respectful? How do they interact with other people? Uh, do they interrupt? Right? Or is it always about them? Do they not give other people a chance? Right? And think to yourself, how important is it to prepare children for life? And then how do we do that? Life being, um, especially now, especially in the last 2 years, the last 2 weeks, the last day. Um, how do we prepare them for life? The fact that life is uncertain, scary things will happen, frightening things will happen, a pandemic will show up and turn our world upside down. A school shooting will happen. Children will be frightened. They will ask questions. How do we prepare them for that? How do you have this conversation? How do you keep them resilient in a world where the images on the news are frightening and anxiety producing and scary? And think about it. How prepared were you for life? Right? Depending again on how old you are, your parents taught you what they knew. And they didn't teach you overtly, right? They kind of went about and did what they did. Right? If you went to school, the school taught you things, right? Whatever that was, and that was always uh, the line of demarcation, if you will. Right? You went to school to learn uh, your academics, right? And home would teach you other things. Right? School also inadvertently taught you social skills. Again, how to get along with others, how to interact with others, how to wait your turn. There's a great book, and I don't remember the author, but it's, and I'm paraphrasing, but everything I need to know I learned in kindergarten. Right? It's that golden rule, that treating people the way you would like to be treated, that being respectful. Right? That's really what we teach them. Everything else, I mean, they'll learn algebra. I'm still not sure why, but they'll learn algebra in high school, or probably earlier now, right? But those core values, that's what we're teaching them from home. That self-confidence, that ability to show up as their authentic self, that ability uh, to stand up, right? That's another thing that they need to learn. That ability to not be a bystander, right? To stand up. And that's a tough place to be in, to stand up when someone else is being bullied or picked on or being belittled or demeaned, right? To be that kid that stands up and says, that's not right. That's not cool. You can't do that. That's a brave kid, but it's a tough position to be in. Questions, concerns, thoughts? So why do we, why are we working on our own resilience, and why are we teaching our kids? And when I say kids, however old they are, and whatever kids you interact with, so your own kids, foster children, uh, kids in your classroom, the kids that you teach, the kids that come to you as a social worker, kids that you mentor, right? When we teach them to be resilient, it builds character. And you know what character is? Character is that person that you are when no one is looking. Right? and it fosters creativity. This is we've had this conversation over and over, right, about the toys kids have or don't have, that everything is on a screen. So they're not playing with creative toys. They're not building with blocks. They're not using their hands. They're not thinking, right? They're not critically thinking, right? We want to foster critical thinking in them. And it's this encouraging them to be independent. I laugh because we spend our whole lives encouraging them encouraging them to be independent. And then when they're independent, we want to pull them back in sometimes, right? Especially in the world we live in, right? We want them to be independent. Yes, go off to college, go here, go there, but be home by 9 o'clock, right? We prepare them again as best as we can for the uncertainties in life. And there will be uncertainties, again, right where we are today. Life is uncertain. Things will happen that we don't see coming, things that we thought we prepared for. We might not have been as prepared as we thought we were. Things will show up, right? But it doesn't mean we stop living. Again, that's that resilience. That's that, yes, bad things happen, things that I don't understand happen. But how do I bounce back? Do I throw up my hands and say, well, what's the point? No, I keep going. Right? And you raise that bar. You set that expectation high. Right? But within reason, we're always checking back. Is the bar too high? Do I need to lower it a little? Do I need to put a little cushion here? And see, especially with the olders and this idea of this independence, we push for independence, but at the same time, we are there as a safety net. When they made that decision that maybe wasn't the best decision you could have made, but we're here, we got you. Questions, concerns, thoughts? Anything resonating with you? So how do we know someone is resilient? What are the components? What are the characteristics of someone who is resilient? See, and someone who and you while you're listening to or reading these characteristics or these components, you're going to think of someone you know. It might be you. Right? Usually leaders have these qualities, which is why they are leaders. Right? They are resilient. They bounce back. And one of the things, and I say this all the time, even in other trainings that aren't about resilience, we want to teach our kids by example and by giving them uh, situations where they need to be resilient, because it is a light skill, right? So remember back in the day when you went for a job interview, you were asked, hypothetically, what would you do if, right? The question now at the interview is, what did you do when? Right? They want to know when on your other job, when that project didn't go well, when that child that you didn't seem to reach them, what did you do? How did you bounce back? What resources did you look for? That another word for resilience too is resourceful. How resourceful are you in finding the information that's going to help you with this? Right? And that ability here to process that information. I've gathered it. Now I have to process it, and I have to pick and choose and use what's going to help me. See, and people who are resilient go into problem solving mode right away. Right? They don't sit around wringing their hands. Woe is me. Why did this happen? Why are we here? No. And there's something called the 7 minute rule. You get 7 minutes to whine about whatever it is that's going on, whatever it is that's negative. After that, we have to go into problem solving mode. We finished whining. We can't believe this happened. Why do we have to do this? And now we move on. Right? Think about again, leaders. Who's your grade leader? Who's your team leader? Who's the head of the department? Who are those people that rise to the top, that can rally the troops and say, yeah, okay, this is a mess. I can't believe we have to do it, but now we're going to move on and figure out how to make this a positive thing. That's resilience, right? That's uh, that adaptability. This is it. This is here. This is the new reality. Let's deal with it. Right? People who are resilient have the capability and the capacity to be alone from time to time. They enjoy their own company. They're not needy, clingy people. By the opposite token, the flip side, they work well with others. They can adapt to whatever group they're in. And if you've taken this training, or if not, it's a good one. This idea of emotional intelligence, right? That's that working well with others. They call it emotional intelligence. I call it reading the room. It's that ability to literally, if I walk into a room, to read the room. What's going on here? Right? I'm picking up on people's cues. Is this a good time to say this? Might not be. Right? And they're people who are resilient and emotionally intelligent are also discreet. Right? This is not a good time. I can see that what's going on over there. If I go there now, it's just going to add fuel to the fire. Knowing when to say something, knowing when to, you know what, I just need to be quiet and be here next to the person. And you've worked with, I'm sure, the opposite. That person that no matter what team they're on, they ruffle feathers. They just can't seem to get along with anyone else. So you don't want your kid to be that one. So you want to foster that. And again, in your own resilience, how do I get along with others? Do I approach people respectfully? Do I allow people to speak? Or am I interrupting? Where are my social skills? And again, we work in multi-generational, multicultural, multi-ability workplaces. So some people may have trouble with those social interactions. Right? That's a different story. People who are resilient have a great sense of humor. You want to develop your sense of humor. Now, there are some things that will just never be humorous. They're just never going to enter that realm. But other things, when you stop and think about it, maybe not in the moment. It's not funny. I am so frustrated by this. I don't see anything funny here. A day later, 2 days later, oh, this is going to be a great story to tell around the dining room table. This is funny now. Remember when we first went remote, and this whole signing on to Zoom, and who was muted, who was upside down, who couldn't get in the frame, right? Frustrating. But we got to a point where we could laugh. Hey, I showed up right side up today. I'm not on mute. You can hear me. Haven't been talking for 20 minutes and I'm on mute. And that sense of humor, by the way, is directed at yourself. It's that self-deprecating humor. I can laugh at myself. I don't take myself too seriously. It's never pointed outward at someone else in terms of ridiculing or belittling. right? The humor, I can, as I said, not take myself seriously. I can, when I need to, I can be serious, but I do have a great sense of humor. Or I can see the lightness in the situation, or I can bring lightness or levity to a situation. Again, that emotional intelligence. I'm reading the room. Oh, this is not the time to crack a joke. Or, yeah, what they need right now is a joke. I know if I say this or do this, it'll break the tension and they'll laugh. Right? That's, again, part of knowing who's on my team and who am I working with. Questions or thoughts there? So again, how do we teach this resilience, right? It's not like we're gonna sit down and have flashcards on resilience, right? We're teaching the sociable learning, encouraging your child to have friends. See, and this is the piece that was tough during the middle. I gotta stop saying middle. The height of the pandemic, right? How did we keep those friendships? And what's ironic is we had just gotten to a point where the pediatric association had said how much screen time they should have per age. Screen at that time was just TV. And enter the pandemic, everybody was on every screen 24/7 to get work done, to get school work done, even to visit grandma. Right? But we want to encourage again this moving out into the world. And it's so trite. But to have a friend, you have to be a friend, right? Maybe reaching out to that child, again, that child that other people don't seem to want to pull into the group, right? Also, you want to be that family that gives and does, families that give back, families that are socially aware. And this showed up a lot in the beginning of the pandemic. Families that were the minute there were no masks or no PPE, they were sewing masks. They taught their kids to sew, hand sew, needle and thread. I can't tell you the number of kids that I heard that had their Girl Scout Gold Award or their Boy Scout Eagle Award to do with something surrounding solving a problem or alleviating something during the pandemic. Right? Again, let them see you doing, let them see you being involved. Take them with you to the food bank to help give out food. Right? That's how they learn. They learn by example. Remember the very beginning of the pandemic too, the experts were telling us to have a routine. And routines are good, traditions are good. They keep us grounded. And I tell people this all the time. I said, I think the people who had kids or have kids fared better in the beginning of the pandemic because the schools for the most part, and you know this, kept their routine. So they had their 50-minute math period. Ugh. Math is not my strong suit. I can't see doing it for 50 minutes, let alone 15 minutes. But you know what I mean? They kept those blocks of time. I would get a call for a webinar and they'd say we need it on Monday at 10 and I'd say, well, can we do it? I have space on Tuesday at 3. No, has to be Monday at 10. Why? They wanted to keep the routine. Adults need routine as well. We always have our Monday meeting at 10 and this way people, even though we're remote, everybody's in their own, we wanted to keep something, so we're going to have that Monday meeting at 10. That's when we're going to do the webinar. As much as routines and traditions are needed and they keep us grounded, we know what to expect. And this was a thing I was saying all the time. It sounded trite, but when the whole world was out of control, and still is, today is Taco Tuesday. If I had nothing else to hold on to, I knew tonight we were having tacos. It was Taco Tuesday. Because some days that was all that I had to hold on to. Right? So while the routines, while the traditions keep us rooted, we still need some time to be unpredictable and spontaneous. Yes, sometimes we're going to have dessert first. Sometimes we're going to mix up the routine. We're going to do it this way today. We're going to have breakfast for dinner. Mix it up. We also want to encourage them again to be independent, right? Keeping them optimistic, especially in the times we're living in, right? Going back to that place of gratitude. What is good about this? Yes, this is a horrible thing that happened, but what are some other good things? There's a thing, it's called the rose theory. I use it with adults too, but with kids, you ask them at the end of the day, what was a rose today? What was something that was particularly beautiful or nice? Because you can even do this with really little ones. What was a thorn? What was something that, oh, it's kind of prickly. If it doesn't happen again, you'll be okay. And what is a bud? BUD. What is something you're looking forward to? Could be tomorrow, could be next week, could be in the summer, we're going on vacation, could be Friday. Miss Mary said we're going to have, she's bringing a special snack. That's and optimism on age appropriate level. What are you looking forward to? Let's plan something as a family. I was telling people early on to make a pandemic bucket, a post-pandemic bucket list. What should we do as a family when the restrictions are lifted? Where should we go? And most places where most people we're going to go visit grandma and grandpa. We haven't seen grandma and grandpa in person in 2 years, right? And plan that. Let's sit around the table as a family and plan. Let's make a family vision board and cut out pictures and paste them of things that we want to do. Right? We want to encourage and coach. And again, that's that safety net. I'm going to coach from the sidelines. I'm going to let you go, but I'm going to watch. That's taking off the one training wheel. I'm still here, but you're going to move off. Right? Making sure they have responsibilities at home and age appropriate. And you know this by being in education, but there are charts that will say at this age they should be able to do this chore. And again, you know your child. You know their mental age, their chronological age. Right? How much can they do? Right? And rewarding those times when they are doing something that you haven't even asked them to do. And be specific. See, when we say good boy, good girl, good job, doesn't really mean anything. I like the way you helped your sister pick up the Legos without me asking. So specific. And we can use those words. I appreciate that you thought that I would like a cup of tea when I came in from work and you made it for me. I liked how you shared that last cupcake with your sister. Sharing. Again, it's not all about me. You ever see those stories about kids who give away their birthday presents to other children? Where does that come from? Right? Something is going on in that house that puts them in that head. How else can we encourage them to be resilient and be resilient ourselves? Have one main adult in their life to support and coach them. And it might not be you. I had another training and a mom was very upset. She said her daughter was going to talk to her aunt all the time, which was the mom's sister. And I said, be happy that she has an adult that she feels she can trust. And by all means, if it's something, I'm sure your sister will come and tell you that, yeah, I need to tell your mom, we need to discuss this. But she had a trusted adult. So it can be another family member. It might be an actual, it says coach the child, it might be an actual coach. It might be the Girl Scout leader or whoever it is, right? Make time again for that fun, for that playtime. So we're not always so focused. That spontaneous, unscheduled time. Also make sure they have time to vent and express their frustrations. To us, it doesn't seem like a big deal. Oh, it's a big deal to them. Right? And how they express it, it can be a journal. If they're not writers, it can be a coloring book. It can be painting. It can be drawing. It can be screaming into that pillow. It can be the old-fashioned punching clown that you punch and it pops back up. To let them know that, yeah, that's a feeling. You're allowed to feel frustrated, but then showing an appropriate way to channel it. It's another thing resilient people do. They acknowledge the feeling, they feel the feeling, and they channel it appropriately. And knowing that you, as a parent, you need a support system too, and that can show up in any number of ways. It can be an in-person parent support group, and whatever kind of parent you are, there's a support group for it. There are parents of twins, parents of multiples, parents of children with special needs, and within the special needs, whatever that special need is, there's a group specifically for that special need, right? And pretty much everything is virtual now, so you can join a support group that meets in Ohio if you want. Right? Find the group, find the people that get you, find your tribe, right? Because you don't have to do this alone. To keep your resilience up, make sure you are putting yourself first. And it is tough. It is tough as a parent. Kids always come first. But it's that old airplane analogy. Put your mask on first. Put yourself first when you can. And what does that mean? That means looking for those supports. Someone else is going to watch the kids. Look around in your community. Some communities have respite care. Right, where the kids, you bring the kids for a couple hours, and it's a win-win because they usually have, there are adults there, but there are usually teenagers that help play basketball or give them pizza. So they're getting service hours, the little ones are playing, and you've gotten a few hours for yourself. Look for these things. Ask other parents, well, what do you do? What groups do you belong to? Right? Make sure you are getting sleep. And again, these things will change based on the dynamics of your home. If there's a newborn, if you are in the sandwich generation and you've got the dependent kids and the dependent parents or parents-in-law, you are sandwiched in the middle. It's really hard to find time for yourself. Make sure you find that time. Make sure you are sleeping and eating well and getting some exercise, whatever it might be. Again, find that humor. Find something to laugh about. Right? Enjoy life with the kids. It doesn't seem like it, but in the blink of an eye, they're grown up. I've been telling people, if you had a baby at the beginning of the pandemic, you have a toddler. 2 years have gone by. It's a way to look at the passage of time. Enjoy life with them. Enjoy life without them. Make time for yourself. Make time for your spouse, your partner. And my husband and I always laugh, he's like, when they were little, we'd go out, his mom or my mom would watch them, and we'd talk about them at the dinner table anyways. Like, we might as well have brought them with us because they're they're here anyway. We always took them on vacation. We never didn't have a family vacation. They always went with us. Right. But when you do that, when you make time, and first it's, oh, enjoy time with that. Yeah, because it strengthens your relationship, which then, remember I said, they're sponges, they're soaking up. What do they see? They see you enjoying each other as a couple. That's what they're going to take with them. What kind of adult? Remember that question. What kind of adult are they going to be? Well, the kind of adult that they saw partners nurturing each other and caring for each other and doing those kind things for each other. Right? So you want to ask some open-ended questions of our kids to bring out this resilience. Well, how do you think you would handle this situation? Remember that hypothetical, right? How do you think you would handle it? What would be a good way to do this? What even is the problem here? What seems to be the problem? See, these are all open-ended because it's not yes, no things. What else can you try? What have you tried up till now? What would make you feel better? And you might get some things, nothing. If you left me alone, I'd feel you gently do it, right? And then how do you handle the disappointment and the frustration? And by the way, those words, disappointment, frustration, give them the words, especially the little ones. The little ones know mad, sad, happy, glad. No. How did you feel when you weren't invited to the party? I was mad. Yeah, you were also disappointed. You felt left out. Give them the words and then bring in some medium. Let's draw. What color is that anger? What color is that disappointment? What color is that frustration? Right? And let them, a feeling like this, let them internalize what makes you proud. Proud's another word they don't. How did you feel when you got that award? I was happy. Yeah, you felt proud. You know that feeling that made you raise up and puff up your chest? That's pride. That's proud. Now they know what it feels like. Also give them the feeling. And share that. Yeah, I'm going to that new school today for the first time. I'm feeling anxious. You know what happens when I feel anxious? My palms get sweaty. I get that rumbly in my stomach. Yeah, me too. That's how I feel. Yeah, that's how you get them to talk about and understand their feelings. Right? Because we talked about resilient people being in touch with their feelings. And you want to keep everything in balance. Revisit, especially those days when you're like, what was I thinking? Revisit why you had children. And yes, they are the focus, but there are other aspects in your life also that still count. Of course, your finances, because we talked about them being economically disadvantageous after a while, right? You want to maintain contact with your family and friends because again, that helps you be you and it helps you with the kids. Who's that family member? Who's that friend that I can trust with them? And we talked about giving back. Right? And this is a tough one, but if they're going through something, if they're having a problem, it's their problem, not yours. Again, safety net. I will show you some resources. I will help you try to figure it out. Right? Especially, and that's an older child thing. Remember this: there's never one right way to solve a problem. We might have to do the GPS. We're recalculating. Tried that, it didn't work. Gonna try something else. Right? Sometimes silence can be golden. We don't always have to. It's not always a party. We're just chilling out. We're just relaxing. Hugs and kisses always welcome. My son is he'll be 26 next month. He's 6'1". He comes down from upstate. I stand on the chair. I don't care, Matthew. I'm hugging you. Deal with it. Because they get it that even younger than that, they kind of squirm away. We're still hugging and kissing. Right? And again, that sense of humor when you can. And always, I might not have, I don't really like that choice that you made, but I still love you to pieces. I will always love you. The rest of the world might not be so nice. I always love you, especially when they move off, when they go to college. Oh, there's always a place for you here. And whatever's going on, whatever they're in the throes of, this too shall pass. And for yourself, remember that too. This too shall pass. It might take a lot longer to pass than you initially thought, but it will pass. Any questions, concerns, thoughts? While you're dropping that in the chat, I will call your attention to your Employee Assistance Program, your EAP, which is a great resource for you when you're traveling through this life. Uh, as a website, it's anthemeap.com. Your company code is Stamford Public Schools. It's a long one. And to call in, it's an 800-999-7222. Anybody you speak to there is a professional and they are bound by HIPAA, so everything is kept confidential. There is a plethora of information for yourself as employees of Stamford Public Schools and also for your family members. If you have a minute, my little friend here, the QR code, if you hold up your phone camera, it takes you to an evaluation of today's session and also an opportunity to put in some other topics you might be interested in hearing in a forum like this. As always, it has been a pleasure to be with you. Please take very good care of yourself, and if you can, someone else. Enjoy the rest of your day. And again, thank you for spending time. I know you're very busy. Thank you for spending some time with me today. It's been a pleasure.